The RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football Podcast feed is presented to you by Yahoo Sports Daily Fantasy. This week on Yahoo, on week 2, it's the $1 Million Baller. It is back and once again continues to be rake and commission free. Tremendous value for all of you players. $20 entry. Check it out. If you don't have an account, use Grinders30 when you sign up over at Yahoo Sports Daily Fantasy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS OGs podcast right here on RotoGrinders.com, talking everything week 2 in daily fantasy. But before we do that, if you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't heard the news, but our boy, our fellow OG, Mr. HeadChopper, the newest millionaire in daily fantasy sports, taking down the $1 million prize over in the FanDuel Sunday Million. Chop, couldn't be happier for you, brother. You deserve it. It's been a long time coming. How the hell are you with an extra $1 million in the old account, brother?
I am the exact same guy, man. I just the same routines and everything. My kids don't even know, and they don't need to know because they'll never catch a whiff of that money. You know what I'm saying? Like they're already pretty spoiled. The last thing they need to know is that daddy made some extra giblets on the side. So yeah, same thing, man. Same routines, same everything. Like I was telling you guys before the show, the only thing that really changes is maybe my wife can retire because she's the one who works a job out. I'm already practically retired with this lifestyle, but so maybe she can retire a little bit earlier now, and that's good for her. So other people will benefit more than I will about it, so that's good.
Well, definitely well-deserved. I mean, during the sweat show, this guy's cool as a cucumber. I would have been pulling my hair out, running around the house, sweating $1 million, and he was like it was nothing. Worried about the tacos. So 2 things. First, how were the tacos, Chop?
They're always excellent. My wife is one of if not the best cooks I've ever known, so I got lucky in that one.
I mean, that's a great way to end a day. I mean, $1 million, some tacos. I mean, well, what beats that? And you're right about the kids, because then they go to school and my dad's a millionaire. My dad's better than your dad. My dad can kick your dad's, all that nonsense you don't need to deal with. So congrats, buddy. Really happy for you. Let's bring our other millionaire in. Derek, I know you've won millions over the last couple weeks, months. So how are we doing, Notorious?
Yeah, I wish on that, but love the humility from Chop. Nobody deserves it more, and it's good for the resume for the old OG pod. You know, we had Beer take down that showdown slate last year. You taking down the $1 million. Congrats to that, and I think that means it's my turn next. So, yeah, pumped for week 2. Huge congrats. I think you need to celebrate a little bit, but I love it.
So quick recap. We know how Chop's week 1 went. I mean, obviously taking down the biggest prize, so clearly had a good week. But if you haven't seen the video where he kind of breaks things down, and we talk about it all the time, putting together a core and then mixing and matching pieces around it when that core hits, you're going to be in for a good day. So, Chop, we know you had a great week 1. Anything you want to recap about week 1? Anything you want to talk about here before we move and turn the page to week 2?
No, I mean, if you guys check out that video, you see how I did it. It's pretty simple. The one thing I would say is that there is no right or wrong to how you do it. You see the guy who hosted the sweat show with me, Jordan, he makes fun on Twitter. He's like, I haven't even looked at football yet, and, play whoever you want, all this. And he's partially right. You could play whatever you want if just as long as you're pretty reasonable about it. And then on the flip side, you can research all you want too. No matter how much you research or don't research, you're going to have good weeks where your players hit. You're going to have bad weeks. It takes luck to win big money, but just as long as you're knowledgeable on the subject, you can still be profitable quite a bit. So there's all kinds of different ways to do it. That's just the method I chose. Is I choose not to do like heavy duty research. I do read some guys' articles. I do look at some videos. Some guys I trust, some trusted opinions, and then I just put some teams together. So there's no right or wrong to it.
And it's building your own process. What works for Chop, it may not work for Derek, may not work for me. What works for me is not going to work for you. It's really finding your own way, and there's a million different ways to do it. So, Derek, how was your week 1, buddy?
Yeah, week one, I think was my first profitable week one, maybe ever. My main slate lineup was terrible, but luckily afternoon and showdown was pretty good. And yeah, like Chop was saying, there's definitely such thing as content overload. So definitely be careful with that. That's why you're listening to us, so you know not or who not to play. But yeah, I mean, just find your experts that you trust and the information sources that you trust. And like Chop said, there's a lot of ways that you can get it done and find what works best for you.
There you go. About a break-even week for me, so I'll count that as a win. I'm with you, Derek. Week one is usually the Wild Wild West. I'd sink a ton of money in, and the results haven't been great over the years in week one. So happy with that. Head is still above water, but agree with what you said there. You know, confirmation bias, and if you follow too many pieces of information and listen to everything, you're just drowning in information. So be selective, and we're glad you're here listening to us, and hopefully we can help you maybe become the next daily fantasy millionaire. That's the goal here. So let's jump into the games, guys. Week two here, we're going to focus on the main slate. If you're looking for Thursday, Sunday, Monday information, tons of great stuff over at RotoGrinders to get you ready for that. We want to spend all our time here on week two, looking back to week one, but looking ahead and kind of forecasting what's going to happen here in these games. So let's start with Arizona and Baltimore. Arizona coming off a tie there in Detroit was a hell of a comeback in that fourth quarter. Saw a ton of production there in the fourth. So we'll see if that rolls over. Baltimore, we know what they did. They went in and curb stomped Miami by about 50. So Derek, we'll get started with you here. Huge spread in favor of Baltimore. Part of me feels like the spread's a little bit too high. Like there's a bias on what Baltimore did to Miami. Arizona struggles. What do you think in this game? Because I see a lot of fantasy goodness here. I think a lot of it's going to start with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, definitely a big spread. And it's worth noting the total opened at 41, and it's only Tuesday, and it's already up to 46.5. So a lot of people betting over here. We definitely saw Cliff Kingsbury's new offense in action. They played 4 wideouts on over 70% of the snaps, which if you look at back to last year, the highest in the NFL was 12% for any single team playing 4 wide receiver sets. So pretty crazy. You look at Kyler Murray, 570 air yards against the Lions. I know that game went overtime, but even if you take the overtime out, he was still in like the 95th percentile of air yards. I know that's Chop's favorite stat, and I know that's how he won the million. He's not going to admit it, but I know that's true. So I definitely think they're going to air it out, even though it's not a great matchup by any means against Baltimore. They're good against the run and the pass, but I do think this game could be high scoring, and if they can get some offense going, then that should be good on both sides of the ball. DJ is basically going to be a workhorse moving forward, 87% of the snaps. And a lot of his carries came with less than 8 defenders in the box, which last.
All right, Chop, let's go over to you on your thoughts here while Derek gets his thoughts together. Arizona and Baltimore.
All that money, you think you can afford an Ethernet cord, man.
Why don't you help the guy out? Send a portion of that million.
100%. If that guy gives me his address, I'm sending him an Ethernet cord right now, man. Like this game in general, I think it's interesting because one of the things I like to think about is there is going to be that bias. Like people do think Baltimore's the next big thing now. How do we know that Miami's not just going to roll over for everybody this year and be terrible for everybody?
Right.
And that Detroit's a much better defense and a much better team than what they're giving credit for. I mean, they're healthy on defense finally for the first time in a couple of years. So I think it's interesting how, this is too big of a spread for me. And maybe one of the biggest surprises to me in week one was these two quarterbacks in their respective games didn't run at all, like maybe 3 or 4 carries between the two of them. I was shocked at that. So I expect it to be different when you start facing this kind of a level of competition. Lamar, I think, is going to run a little bit more this game. I definitely think Kyler should run a little bit more. He's going to be under some pressure. So I think there's a lot of fantasy stuff we can take away from this game. I like the passing games a little bit. I'm not as much on Mark Ingram this game. Think he was good, but I think it's going to be more Lamar Jackson running, hitting some of his receivers, and he's got a lot of receivers to throw to. And on the flip side, Kyler Murray running around a little bit and flipping it out to Larry Fitzgerald looked like the guy. And I think David Johnson catches some passes out of the backfield. So I don't know about the straight running in this game, but I think David Johnson can make some points via the air for you. But I don't mind these two quarterbacks. I think they're going to run around a little bit, and that's what we really want from them on a fantasy tip.
Yeah, agree completely. We didn't see any rushing, like you said. And the big thing with Baltimore, one of the things that may go overlooked, Jimmy Smith not going to play this game, so that secondary a little thin. In Arizona running out 4 receivers. Crabtree is supposed to be active this week, but you saw 13 targets to Fitzgerald, who looked outstanding. We want to dig Larry Fitzgerald's grave. He's not ready yet. A little Undertaker.
I know, man.
Up on you, like, don't put me to the grave yet. Christian Kirk, 12 targets in that game, as you mentioned. David Johnson was a beast. So I think Arizona is really being overlooked here. Baltimore, one of the better defenses in the league, but this Arizona offense really picked it up in the second half. Baltimore side, I agree with you. It's Lamar Jackson. What thoughts on Marquise Brown? Obviously had the huge game. We know this guy's going to have big games, but only played 14 snaps. I don't know if that was a product of his injury, the blowout. So it feels like chasing points there. Are you with me on Marquise Brown, or you think we're going to see another big game?
I'm totally up in the air on that. I saw that stat today too, the 14 snaps, and I was shocked. But then you think about it, and you think that the game was like 35-3 at halftime. So maybe they just didn't want to, show everybody all their cards, and they got the majority of these guys out of the game before they really, really unleashed them in the second half. And so there's all kinds of ways to go about that. There's I've seen it, but it is a little scary to think 14 snaps. But I think the score had a lot to play into it. So, if I'm building 50 teams this week, I would say I'll pair Lamar up with him on a couple. I'm not going to go overboard. I'm certainly not pushing the lock button, but that guy looked like a very dangerous fade moving forward. That was some big time plays he hit.
Yeah, and remember, guys like that, they don't need a ton of snaps.
Yeah.
They can do their damage in a handful of snaps. And Mark Andrews, I think, is another solid play this week. Hawkinson did whatever he wanted against this Arizona D last week. Derek, are you back with us, brother?
Yeah, I hope so. There's some stores in there. Yeah.
All right. Well, pick up where you left off here with Cardinals and Ravens.
Yeah, well, I don't really know where I left exactly. I was talking for a while.
All right, quick thoughts on Cardinals Ravens.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Synopsis.
Yeah, Arizona. They ran so many 4 wide receiver sets. Definitely a Kingsbury style of offense. Definitely have some upside even in a tough matchup against the Ravens. Kyler Murray led all quarterbacks with 570 air yards, which is, even if you take out overtime, that's like a 95th percentile for a quarterback. So they're going to air it out. DJ's going to see fewer 8-man defenders in the box, which is going to be good for his appeal. But at the same time, it's a tough spot on the road against Baltimore. So I like this as a game stack for Arizona, but probably not core options. And then on Baltimore, you kind of like what Lamar did. Is he the GOAT, or is the Dolphins defense the worst of all time? I'm not really sure. Probably somewhere in the middle. Made a lot of good throws, and we know he's got that rushing upside. Going to be facing the fastest paced offense in the NFL, so we got to like Lamar once again. It'll be interesting to see what his ownership is, because ownership on a quarterback never gets too high. So I think you can go right back to him. And then I don't know if I really want to pair him up with somebody. I heard you guys talking about Hollywood Brown's snap share. Still has some upside for sure, but that does worry me a little bit. So I would probably just go naked Lamar and go from there.
All right, I'm opening up my SharpSide app, and if you haven't done that yet, download the SharpSide app. All the lines, all the totals, player props, all different sports. Free app, and there's a free contest giving away $10,000 on the SharpSide app. $5,000 the first, just by swiping right or left on these games. So let's start with this one. Any strong leans here, Derek? Spread at 13, total at 46.5.
Yeah, total keeps rising, but I will take the over. I think the Ravens can put up points here, and we know that Arizona wants to play at a fast pace. So give me the over on 46.5, and I think the Arizona can at least keep it within 2 touchdowns. Maybe have a late score to cover the spread.
Yeah, kind of like a little 2-team parlay here. Arizona and the over. Chop, your thoughts here on the spread and the total.
Yeah, I definitely like the over. I think it could even be a Baltimore blowout, and Arizona could get you some garbage time touchdowns to push it over. So I definitely think the over is the play, because I don't see I don't see Baltimore getting stopped in this game. So as long as Arizona can put up something on the board, I think we're good on that total.
Yeah, I don't think we're done seeing this total rise. Derek brought it up, started low. It's been bet way up. Heavy juice on the over, even at 46.5. So one to jump on now if you're thinking about betting the total. All right, next game, San Francisco and Cincinnati. The Niners coming off an impressive win against an ugly Tampa Bay team. Cincinnati battled in Seattle. I think that was one of the surprises of week one. Played pretty well there up in Seattle. So, Derek, thoughts here? You know, two kind of middling teams. Who comes out here, and is there any fantasy goodness in this game?
Yeah, as a whole, I probably don't have a ton of interest in this game, but there are two running back injuries that we need to keep an eye on. Tevin Coleman expected to miss the next couple of weeks with a high ankle sprain, so got to think Matt Breida is going to be the starter there with Mostert kind of mixing in as well. I think both of them are interesting tournament plays. Breida's 5,200, Mostert 3,800. If it's going to be like a 60-40 split, something like that, I don't mind looking at a little bit of both of them. Garoppolo just hasn't had a monster fantasy outing in quite a long time, year and a half, something like that, and can't really trust Shanahan at this point when it comes to his receivers. Named Pettis the number one wide receiver there, and then he only played 2 snaps. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if he's just ineffective, but looks like Goodwin and Deebo Samuel kind of going to be the guys there moving forward. Don't really want to trust them on the road. I know the Bengals are a good matchup, but for me, it's going to be George Kittle. Had 2 touchdowns called back against the Bucs last week, even without those 2. Caught 8 of his 10 targets. So I think he's a guy you can spend up on at tight end. And then for the Bengals, Joe Mixon, dealing with an injury as well. He's listed as questionable, say he has a chance to play. If he's out, then you automatically look to Giovanni Bernard. He's pretty much smashed in this situation every time it's been, presented to him over the last couple of years. So he would be the guy that I'd look to there. Ross and Tyler Boyd have both been really good in week one. They both saw double-digit targets. I do think, Seattle's secondary is one of the worst in the NFL, so I'm not putting a ton of stock into how good they look, but I think Boyd offers a better floor-ceiling combo, and then Ross kind of gives you that upside for tournaments. And, so I think it's an interesting game, but just depending on what the running back situation looks like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's some good value there. Gio, Breida, both 53, 5,200 on DraftKings. Mostert has always looked good when he gets an opportunity. It looked good last week, 3,800 on him. Could be right in the mix for 10, 12 carries. That may be enough to pay off the $3,800 price point. Chop, John Ross, the name I want to ask you about. Derek mentioned him. Had the big week. We've kind of seen flashes. We know he did a lot of this in college, just the ability to get over the top with that speed. Are you buying this? Because he's cheap once again here, 4,600, pretty high total game here. Interest level there and the rest of this Niners-Bengals game.
No, I'll be. You won't see John Ross on. I doubt you'll see John Ross on any teams I make this week. I just don't think he's that good of an NFL wide receiver, and he just had a really good game. Things really broke his way. There was some busted coverage in there that got him there too. So, yeah, I'll be fading him. I'd like to see with the status of Joe Mixon as the week wears on. I want whoever's the running back in this game for Cincinnati is a guy I want. I want Mixon. If not, then I'll take Bernard. But the running back is the one I want. You could play Boyd. I think he's fine. I definitely want Boyd over Ross. I won't even have Ross. But then on the flip side, George Kittle for sure. Just everything Derek says right on. George Kittle, the running back, Breida, and I'm with you on Mostert. He's a guy I was going to say value-wise, like he actually ripped off a really nice touchdown run that in week one, but that one got called back too, just like Kittle's touchdowns did. So I think Mostert could get you in the end zone here, man. For 3,800, that's not the worst thing.
All right. And that game had about 5 touchdowns called back, I think it was. I think Kittle had 2, Braid had 2, Mostert. It was like every touchdown that was scored kept getting called back. But I like the Kittle call. One of the biggest things, I was going to bring this up in the beginning, with week 2, love going back to guys that kind of disappointed. I wouldn't say Kittle was a disappointment, like a bust, but maybe didn't live up to what we thought he would. So that'll kind of be the theme throughout week 2 for me, is finding those guys or teams that disappointed in week 1 where everybody overreacts and they're going right back to the John Rosses of the world. Find those guys that disappointed a little bit. So agree with you guys here. Let's talk spread and total. We have Cincinnati, small home favorite, -1, total sitting at 45. Chop, any strong leans on either of those?
I don't have any leans. I think the 45 is right where it should be, and I can't play Cincinnati. I just don't think that they're that good, and I don't want to play a road, a 1-point road under, just a 1-point underdog on the road like Frisco. I really don't know what their team is about either, because Tampa Bay is who knows what Tampa is. Tampa might be just a terrible team, and so I don't even know what Frisco is. I don't have a lean either way.
Yeah, for me, it's a small lean to Cincinnati. Nothing I would put a ton of action, put the house on, putting $1 million on it or anything. But I'm with you on the total. Looks about where it should be. Derek, thoughts, spread, total here, Cincinnati, San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think this is a stay away from me. If I have to choose, I'll go toward the home team. So I would take the Bengals +1.
All right, moving on to our next game. We have the Chargers coming into Detroit. Chargers coming off a nice overtime win against the Colts. The Lions doing what the Lions do, somehow ending up in a tie after that big fourth quarter lead they blew. So looking ahead at the Lions' schedule, it is very difficult moving forward. I mean, they're at Philadelphia. They play Minnesota. They're at Green Bay on a Monday night. This is almost a must-win for this team here with their schedule coming up. But let's start with the Chargers here, Chop. Austin Eckler, I think, is the big story here. Had a massive game there in Week 1. Still only 6,100 on DraftKings. Do we worry about his ownership getting out of control in this one, or is it a lock button play with his high ceiling that he already showed us in Week 1?
Yeah, I'm not worried about the ownership. I don't think it's a lock button. But I'm not going to worry too much about the ownership. It's too good of a price for what's always been a really explosive fantasy player. So I think that's fine. Phillip Rivers is, obviously a quarterback. I don't really want him because he doesn't run at all. So, but as far as his receivers, I was of the thought that going into Week 1, man, it's going to be tough for me to pick one of these guys because I think he has so many weapons now that he can throw to. It's probably good for him, but as far as pinning somebody down, I don't know if I could. Then he went and, Keenan Allen was the guy. But that game really just set up for Keenan Allen because of the way the Colts play defense. So this is against Detroit. Maybe it's a little bit different. So I'm not sure Keenan is the guy this week. I think there's so many options for him. It's just tough for me to pull the trigger on any of these guys. So I'm also an Eckler guy, but as far as the passing game, I think it can thrive, but I just don't think I can pin down the receiver for San Diego. And on the flip side, that was a really good matchup for Detroit, and they were okay, but they weren't great. Kerryon Johnson wasn't great, and this is a much tougher matchup. And I'll go back to Kenny Galladay because hopefully nobody will be on him. It's not a easy matchup. It's a tough matchup, and he had a disappointing Week 1, so I'll go there. But the rest of those guys, I'm not playing Amendola, and I probably won't even play T.J. Hawkinson. So I'll go back to Kenny Galladay. But other than that, I don't have a ton of interest. I think this could be kind of an ugly game fantasy-wise, man. I think it's in Detroit, which is going to hurt the Chargers. And the way Detroit wants to play is just slow and, I don't know. I'm not a ton of interest for me in this game.
Two guys for me that they feel the bounce back is Kerryon Johnson. We saw Marlon Mack have a massive game against this Chargers defense. It was a little shorthanded. I know C.J. Anderson was involved, but Kerryon 16 carries, 2 targets in that last game. So nobody's going to want to play him after that last one. And Hunter Henry on the other side, was too cheap on DraftKings. Everybody played him. Probably let down by that outing in Week 1. So willing to go back to the well on him as well. Derek, let's go over to you here, Chargers and Lions.
Yeah, definitely agree on Austin Eckler. I think he's a great play once again. As long as the Chargers offensive line is as bad as it is, I think it sets up really well for Eckler. Phillip Rivers isn't going to have a ton of time to throw the ball, and he loves to dump it off to Eckler. I ended up playing, more than we thought he would. Played 75% of the snaps. Basically got the same 75% of the touches in the backfield. So I think he's the guy right now. I agree with Chop. Don't really know what receiver to pair Rivers with, even if I wanted to play him. But it does look like Mike Williams, his status is in doubt. If he ends up being out, I think that's pretty good for Keenan Allen, good for Eckler. Definitely good for Hunter Henry. You mentioned he kind of let everyone down last week, and good matchup. Detroit was 26 in DVOA against tight ends last year, and Hunter Henry actually ran 25 snaps either in the slot or on the outside. So he's not your typical tight end. I think they get him going in this one. And on the Detroit side, I don't really love anything here. Their numbers were inflated by the matchup against the Cardinals last week, plus the overtime. Kerryon only played 56% of the snaps, which is a small concern. Didn't really get much going on the ground. Amendola and Hawkinson both topped 100 yards and scored a touchdown. I think they're pretty easy fades. I know they're both cheap, but the Chargers defense is a lot better than the Cardinals. So if I had to play somebody, it'd be Galladay just because he did let everyone down last week.
All right, next, Alex, talk the spread here. Chargers 2.5-point road favorites, total sitting at 47. Heavy juice on the over. Derek, any leans on either of those?
I just don't like this Lions team that much, so I would go Chargers, even though I don't like small road favorites, but I would go Chargers, and I'd probably go the under because I don't love this game as a whole.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Chargers. I don't love the total. I think it could be an uglier game as well, so I would lean the under, but I feel better about the Chargers at -2.5. Chop, thoughts on the line and the total?
The line is a little bit tough. I think it's pretty good. So I think I like the under here. I just, like I said, it just feels like it's a grind out game for Detroit. A lot of running the ball, and on the flip side, I think the Chargers, do a similar game plan, keep everything low, no big plays, and I like the under here.
All right, fourth game for us, NFC North battle. The Vikings traveling to Lambeau Field to take on my Green Bay Packers. Both teams coming in 1-0. Minnesota, decisive win at home against Atlanta. Green Bay, we saw the game. It was ugly. It was a struggle, but they went into Chicago and got the win. So big game here for both teams trying to take control of that division. So, Chop, big story here. I think Dalvin Cook looked outstanding, obviously was a big part for you this week. Are we going back to the well on Dalvin Cook? We know this team wants to run the ball. Price jumped up on him. I think that'll help alleviate some of the ownership. So thoughts there. And then the Green Bay side of things, it was ugly. Do we trust anybody on that side of the ball right now?
Yeah, I for sure think the problem with Green Bay is they're going to get stuck with these tough early season matchups. So I'm kind of just waiting for the right time. I don't think this is necessarily the right time, but we're going to be able to trust them here pretty soon. I just don't know if it's this week. I definitely think that they're a lot better than what they've showed last week and what they're going to show this week. But it's just tough matchups. That's just the way the ball bounces sometimes. But so as a whole, for fantasy in this game, I don't like a lot because the Green Bay defense is so much more improved. And I know that's music to your ears, man.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But they are they were a team I was targeting before the season as far as being an improved defense that I didn't want to pick on. And they certainly didn't disappoint in week one. I think they're stout this week. This is another tough offense, though. Cook and Thielen and Diggs can get it done, but on the road, I don't think they're going to get it done. So I definitely 100% Dalvin Cook won't be part of a core for me this week. He'll be lucky to find any rosters. I think Green Bay is going to be tougher than that. Don't necessarily like the passing game too much either. Maybe one of these guys gets off, but I don't want to pick between Thielen and Diggs. And on the flip side, Minnesota's a good defense, so I think they kind of keep things in check too. You know, maybe you get a couple touchdowns out of Devontae Adams. You can never discount how good he is, and they get down inside the 10, and he just gets his 2 touchdowns. That's just the way he does. So I would never discount that, but as a whole, this is not a game I'm targeting.
So I'm glad you brought Adams up. Has scored in 4 straight games against the Vikings. So, you know, that's the good of it. The bad of it, he's never crossed 70 yards against this team. Only 1 game of more than 5 receptions against this team over the last 4 seasons. So I agree with you. Yes, probably scores. Does he pay off that price tag? That's where I'm wondering if he can make it there. But would certainly fill the bill of guy you want to go back to that burned everybody. The problem is the long-term history, just not there. So, Derek, where do you come out on this? Devontae Adams, I agree with Chop. He can get his numbers for sure, but history has not been on his side in this matchup.
Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. We have a much improved defense in the Packers and an elite defense in the Vikings, plus it's a divisional game. So just not a ton to love here. The Vikings, I don't know if you guys saw this. They had 10 passing attempts last week. 10.
Yeah.
Third fewest in the last 10 years. They definitely want to run the ball more. They fired their offensive coordinator last year because he was passing the ball too much. So I wouldn't talk you out of playing Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to be heavily involved. Played close to 70% of the snaps, even though he got a lot of the fourth quarter off in that blowout. But not a ton to like for the Vikings. I can't trust their passing game right now if they're not going to air it out. Then for the Packers, don't mind the Devontae Adams call. He was getting triple teamed at times last week against the Bears. Still saw 8 targets. So you know Rodgers is going to throw on the ball even if he's not open. But, yeah, just not a lot to love for me in this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I think I'll, mix and match maybe a little bit, but not a lot here. Not a game I would be stacking. So let's talk the line, -3, total sitting at 45, Derek. I don't really want to touch either of those. I could see Minnesota going in and winning this game. I could see Green Bay winning a close game. Feels like it should be in about the 20s for both teams. Any thoughts on either of those totals or spreads?
Total looks pretty efficient to me. Maybe it's the homer in me because my wife's a Packers fan, but I like them at home, so I'll take the Packers.
Chop, any thoughts? Packers -3, total 45.
Yeah, the 3 seems right on the money, man. So I'm going to take the under here, under the 45. I think maybe we get lucky and it gets down to more of a 21-17 game or something like that.
Yeah, and this is 2 elite defenses we're talking about here. So nothing.
Maybe.
We'll see. I was encouraged by that Green Bay D, so we'll see. But I agree. I think
Being a parent can be really challenging. Child and Family Resource Network focuses on connecting pregnant parents and those with kids under the age of 5 with free support services to help them on their parenting journey. Everyone deserves someone they can turn to for help with parenting. Visit childandfamilyresourcenetwork.org today.
it could be an uglier game. All right, next game, Derek, we'll talk about your Jacksonville Jags not off to a great start here. And now the Gardner Minshew area begins. Old BDN on the IR. So tough spot here. Going into Houston, Minshew looked pretty good, though. Comes in relief, puts up some decent numbers. But on the road in Houston, we watched Houston play the other night. They looked outstanding, lost a heartbreaker there at the end. But can they go in and do some damage here, Derek?
Oh, man. It's a sad day for us 3 Jaguar fans out there. Nick Foles, after throwing that dime, breaks his clavicle. Honestly, even as a Jaguars fan, I had no clue what Minshew looked like till I saw his picture on Twitter today. Looked like Uncle Rico a little bit. I don't know. I think they are in a much tougher spot than they were last week at home against Kansas City. Now they go on the road against the Texans, who, look, they didn't look great against the Saints, but obviously playing them in the Superdome, it's going to be tough. So I think they get going a little bit at home. But I do think there's some interesting value plays from Jacksonville. Fournette's basically going to be a 3-down back moving forward. His price is still reasonable at $6,300 on DraftKings. He's going to get a lot of targets in the passing game as well. D.D. Westbrook was really quiet. Was outplayed by both Chark and Conley. But I think it's a good spot for him. He's going to go up against slot corner Aaron Colvin. He struggled last week, really struggled last year in his rookie season. So I think it's a good spot to buy low on Westbrook while everyone else is going to be looking at Conley and Chark. Now on the other side, I think it's a tough spot for the Jags D. Once again, we saw Mahomes tear apart their defense, and Watson has a very similar skill set to Mahomes. So certainly wouldn't talk anyone out of playing Watson if you want to look that way. Hyde looked good in his rushing attempts, but he's still a back that's not going to be involved in the passing game. So don't think you need to look his way. Duke Johnson feels a little overpriced. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be matchup proof from now on for pretty much forever. Probably going to draw the defense of Jalen Ramsey, who did pretty well against Tyreek Hill before he got hurt. I think you look at Will Fuller. He had 111 air yards on only 3 targets, so they're going to take a lot of shots downfield on him. But for me, I like the Texans defense and then the cheap value for Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's not a ton I really like in this game. We'll see if Minshew can do it again here. I don't mind Watson. We know Hopkins is pretty much matchup proof, even against the Jalen Ramsey. Not afraid to go there. But, this is a Houston secondary. Gave up over 100 yards to Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn in that game. So it could be some value just picking the right Jacksonville receiver. So, Chop, any thoughts there with the value of Jacksonville? And how high are you on a Watson to Hopkins this week?
I actually like this game a little bit for fantasy purposes. I think Minshew is better than what a lot of the average people think out there who don't really follow college as much. When he transferred to Washington State, he could have been the Heisman winner last year. He was that good. He was pretty good. So I don't think he's that big of a downgrade from Foles. It's just, the offense in general is probably just not a good offense. Maybe, we need to look into the coaching and coordinating, but I think Minshew will be fine. Fournette, like Noto said, Fournette's fine. I think this is a good bounce back for Westbrook. I know he caught a touchdown last week, but generally that was a disappointing performance, considering what everybody thought he was going to do this year, I think. So I like Westbrook to bounce back for the reasons, Beer, like you said. The secondary might not be that good, so – on the flip side, what they're going to do is they're going to push Jacksonville to have to score because this offense is really good. So I don't mind those guys, man, Fournette and Westbrook. Houston's just going to be a juggernaut all year long, no matter who they face. The reason why is because they got all these weapons. So Deshaun's always going to be a tier 1 quarterback every single week, no matter the matchup. So put him up there this week. This is a game I would prefer Duke Johnson over Carlos Hyde because of the pass catching. Carlos Hyde looked really good in that game on Monday night. I give him a lot of credit. A lot of people, buried him already, but he actually looked pretty spry. So I don't know how long it holds up. But when the right matchup comes along, I'll take Carlos' side. But this is the matchup for Duke Johnson. And then I think you just pair Watson with Hopkins, or you pair him with Fuller. One of those guys is going to have a monster game. I kind of prefer Fuller this week because I think a lot of the tougher stuff goes towards DeAndre Hopkins this week. So I'll take Fuller to burn anybody one-on-one. So I like this game quite a bit in comparison to what I think the average person's going to take out there from a 43 total.
All right, speaking of totals, we got 43. 8.5 is the spread in favor of Houston. Chop, you like either of those this week?
Give me the over, man. Give me the over just because I think Houston's just so good on offense. I think they'll push the pace.
Yeah, I mean, and I was expecting Jacksonville D to bounce back, and maybe they do, but certainly didn't look that way in week 1. So we'll see here. I'm kind of with you on the over here. Spread feels about right, about an 8.5, 9-point favorite at home. Derek, let me guess, you're taking the points in the Jag.
No, I tried that last week. I don't feel good about the +9 or the over/under, so I think I'll just pass on this one.
All right, next game, let's lead with the spread and the total. We have the New England Patriots at Miami. So they're on the road in Miami, a game they lost last season. Minus 18.5-point favorites here, total at 48. Chop, what are we doing here? Because a home team getting 18.5 points, generally you take the points. This is also a team that just lost by about 50 at home to Baltimore. So what's going to give here? Does New England just roll this team, or does Miami actually show up and put up a fight?
In a normal year or situation, and I'll take the 18 points, 18.5 points in the home underdog, but not this team, not this year. Give me New England. This is just, it feels like Miami. This is basketball, coming into play here in the NFL. They're tanking, and their front office wants it. They're putting an inferior product out there, and there's really nothing these players can do because they're probably not an NFL caliber team at all.
Okay, so no Dolphins, obviously, then. What do we do at New England? Because we know at New England they can go a million different directions here. Antonio Brown.
That's the problem.
You're right. Exactly. That's the struggle here is we like Brady, but you have Antonio Brown coming in. You have Edelman. You have Gordon. They could decide to run the ball 1,000 times. So Sony Michel kind of fits that bounce-back bill. Or is it James White? Do we get a lot of Burkhead? So it's tough to just say it's too hard. We don't want to play any New England guys. Does anybody stand out here? Or is it basically we're throwing darts?
I think you could throw some darts. I think you whatever darts you throw, you make sure you're setting your lineup builder settings to match. Like if you're going to play Tom Brady, maybe you stay away from Sony Michel or Rex Burkhead or somebody, and you just pair Brady with some receivers, and you just don't want too much in the same lineup. But man, I could just totally see Brady coming out here and putting up 5 touchdowns. That's what he used to do. But then again, the new style New England Patriots go out there and they run for 5 touchdowns, and Brady doesn't exert his arm any more than he has to. So such a toss-up. If you're going to force me to lean here on some fantasy pick, I'm going to say Sony Michel gets into the end zone 2 times in the first half.
I'm with you. I think he's a great bounce-back play. So we'll see if Antonio Brown plays or not. I think that will garner a lot of ownership. I think Sony Michel will completely go overlooked. So more interest on a FanDuel where it's not as PPR heavy, but I'm with you on that one. Derek, your thoughts here? Patriots, how do we attack them? And is there anything on the Miami side to even think about?
Yeah, we're all on the same page when it comes to the Patriots. They're going to be able to do whatever they want against this Dolphins team. Just gave up 59 at home, which is ridiculous. Patriots just ran through Pittsburgh at home. So it's just going to matter what their game plan is going to be. The thing we've learned about the Patriots over the years is that we shouldn't expect to see what they did the week before. So everyone's talking up White and Burkhead outplaying Michel, but I'm right there with you guys. I think it's a nice bounce-back spot for him. I don't really think Brady needs to air it out. He'll be able to if he wants to, but don't really know who to pair him with, like you guys mentioned. So, yeah, I'll probably play some Michel and Patriots D correlation for tournaments. This is one of the better defenses that Belichick's ever had. So I think they certainly make some sense, even though it's on the road. And then on the Dolphins, I don't hate the values here. Albert Wilson left the game with the calf injury, but he's kind of expected to be their number one. If he ends up being out, you could definitely look at Devontae Parker in a game where they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. He had 163 air yards last week, which is one of the highest of any receiver in the NFL. He's only 4,100. So I'll take some shots on these cheap wideouts. But, yeah, for the most part, it's probably going to be just a running game from the Patriots for me.
I'm guessing we're all taking the minus 18.5. What about the total at 48, Derek?
Well, if the Patriots score 45, I think
could squeeze out a field goal.
I think they can get 3.
Chop, you taking the over here as well?
Just because Miami's defense is like a glorified college defense almost. I would say New England put up so many points that I'll take the over.
New England they might cover that over by themselves. So over in the Patriots sounds like a sweep for all of us. All right, next game we got Buffalo and the Giants. The Bills coming off a great win there at the end of that game against the Jets. The Giants got pummeled by your Cowboys, Chop. So going back home here, interesting matchup. Let's start with Derek here. Josh Allen kind of did it again. Didn't put up a GPP winning score, but got there at the end of the day. Other side, Saquon, Evan Ingram, all look good in that game. What are we doing here, Bills and Giants?
Yeah, I like the Buffalo side of this game quite a bit. You mentioned Josh Allen always gives you that nice rushing floor. He's going to want to take some shots downfield. Only 5,300 on DraftKings. In general, I try to save at quarterback, and I like those guys that can make plays with their arm or their feet. So I do like Josh Allen. You can pair him up with John Brown, who had that big game last week. I think he's going to be more consistent this season. The Giants, they just got burned by everybody, Gallup and Cooper last week against Dallas. And so I think it's a really good spot for them. And then you could look at Devin Singletary, only 4,200 on DraftKings. He didn't get a ton of carries, only had 4 in the game, but was very good in those 4 carries. Played 70% of the snaps, played on 82% of Allen's dropbacks, caught 5 of 6 targets thrown his way. So I think his role is just going to get bigger and bigger. And, I think those 3 are very interesting. And you could probably pair them together because Singletary does so much of his work catching the ball out of the backfield. Then on the Giants, you can always play Saquon Barkley. He's 9,200, which is a lot. I definitely prefer Kamara at $1,000 cheaper, but there's nobody with a higher ceiling than Saquon probably in the NFL, so you can look at him. I probably won't be playing Manning at all this season, but you can look at his wideouts. Evan Ingram, looked really good. He's basically a wide receiver that plays tight end. The Bills were really tough against tight ends last season, but at the same time, he's going to get his looks and probably won't be looking at Sterling Shepard. Latimer's kind of the deep guy in that offense, and just don't really know what to expect from Shepard at this point.
And he's banged up. We'll see if he even plays. But Giants side, I like Ingram. Think back to last week. It was the slot, the interior. Jamison Crowder destroyed that team in the slot. So Ingram, intriguing once again. I agree with you on Buffalo. John Brown, think about all the deep receiver. The Dallas guys were just doing whatever they want. Hell, the corpse of Randall Cobb even scored a touchdown against that team. So love the John Brown call. Singletary, they were using him as a wide receiver, splitting him out, putting him in the slot. So agree on all 3 of those calls, Allen, Brown, and Mr. Singletary. Chop, thoughts here, Bills and Giants.
I would say I actually like Josh Allen a lot this week. I think he's going to run. I think he's going to run one in at least. I think he's going to throw. I think he's going to have a field day throwing the ball deep. So I like Josh Allen a bit. I'm going to hold off on Devin Singletary for now until he gets back home and gets a good matchup. I don't want to take him on the road. I think Josh Allen does a lot of heavy lifting in the running game this week. I'm with you guys on the deep threat. I would say that off the radar, maybe a Robert Foster, in lieu of a John Brown. John Brown, I think, is going to be kind of popular after last week and then this matchup, but I maybe take somebody else to catch a deep pass because I think I read the stat today that Amari Cooper, he caught that good touchdown, but when he was being covered by the Giants' number 1 cornerback, who got shut down pretty good. So maybe John Brown draws a lot of that tough coverage. Maybe that takes it away from another guy, and another guy gets loose deep. So maybe I'll take some of these fringe guys on the Buffalo side. On the Giants side, I'm with you. It's a 2-man show for me. It's Barkley or Ingram. Don't want the quarterback, really don't want the receivers. But the Barkley and Ingram, the volume's so good that even in a tough match, I think Buffalo's defense is tough. So even in a tough matchup, that volume can win out.
All right, Chop, we got Buffalo -2 and the over-under sitting at 43. You like either of those plays?
I hate taking a road favorite. But, man, I think Josh Allen could get some things done this week. So I'm going to take Buffalo to squeak it out.
Derek, thoughts? -2 or 43 over-under?
Yeah, I'll copy the first half of Chop's statement. I hate taking road favorites, so I'll go with the Giants. I don't feel good about it, but something about the Bills being favored on the road just feels wrong. So
I'll break the tie. I just think the Buffalo Bills are the better team. I think they can go in and get it done here. There is some juice on that +2 for the Giants, but I think Buffalo wins this game. So I'll take the -2. All right, moving on. Next game for us is Seattle and Pittsburgh. Seattle squeaking one out at home. Pittsburgh, we saw it, just got throttled by New England. That being said, Chop, I am very, very interested in this Pittsburgh team. This is probably my favorite bounce-back spot in general. We know Ben Roethlisberger much better at home. We'll see what happens with Juju. Sounds like he's going to play. If he's in there, I'm interested there. And James Conner, another guy I want to play. This is not the Seattle defense of old that you were fearing. I love Pittsburgh this week. Am I crazy, or are you with me?
No, I'm totally with you. I like Pittsburgh a lot. The Juju health is going to be a big thing, but I imagine he plays. It's just a toe, right? He'll be able to play with a bad toe. So I like him a lot as a bounce back. I'm with you there. I think they ran into a buzzsaw of a team on Sunday night. So I don't hold anything against Pittsburgh. I think Roethlisberger, Connor, Juju are all in play to have good big games. I even think Vance McDonald can have a good game. And I just think in general, this could be a nice, sneaky little shootout game. Because on the flip side, we know Seattle wants to run, but I don't think they're going to be able to run as much in this game as they would at home. So I think Russell Wilson has to kind of draw back and wing it a little bit this game, and that can only do good things for our fantasy purposes on both sides. So give me Russell, give me Tyler Lockett, give me Ben, Connor, and Juju on the other side. I like this game as a whole in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, just Andy Dalton threw for 400 yards against this team in Seattle. So
Seattle, man, that's
Seattle.
the big thing.
So what can Ben do at home? And I like the Lockett as the run it back. I think a lot of people go to Metcalf. He's cheaper. He had the bigger game, but Lockett fits that bill as well. We had huge expectations for him. Everybody loved him in season long, and he came in and really disappointed. Scored that touchdown, but only 2 targets. So I think people will see that and go to Metcalf. So if you're running it back, I really like going with Lockett there, spending a little bit more. So, Derek, are you with us here? Pittsburgh, a team to load up on this week, or are we nuts?
Yep, you are nuts, but you can still load up on Pittsburgh. Great bounce back spot for sure. You guys mentioned Andy Dalton just torched the Seahawks defense in Seattle. So definitely a good spot for Ben. His price has come down. 5,800 on DraftKings seems like a great spot for him to top that 300 yards. Love pairing him up with Juju. The Patriots play, more man defense than anyone in the NFL. He was shadowed the whole game by Stephen Gilmore, who's one of the top corners in football. He struggled in that same matchup last season, so I wasn't too surprised to see him struggle. I think he bounces back in a big way, assuming he's able to play through that toe injury. And then the other receivers, Moncrief played the most snaps, and then Washington had the most air yards. So maybe look at Washington in like a large field tournament. Don't hate Connor here. He only played 46% of the snaps, but it was bad game script, and he didn't play a whole lot in the fourth quarter. So don't mind looking at him as a bounce back. And then I agree with you guys. I do think the Seahawks will have to air it out a little bit more in this game. But for me, I still like Carson. 77% of the snaps last week, 21 touches. He saw 7 targets from Russell Wilson. I think they're going to be able to put pressure on him. So I think he's going to look for that dump off to Carson quite a bit. He's going to get all the goal line work as well. It's only 6,400. That's pretty cheap for a guy that's going to be a workhorse back moving forward. And then of the receivers, I agree with you. I think Lockett makes more sense than Metcalf just because he's more expensive and coming off of that down week.
All right, let's take a peek over at Sharp side. We got -4 for Pittsburgh here, Derek. 46.5 is the total. You like either of those?
Yeah, I'll take the Steelers here. Classic bounce back spot at home, coming off a really poor performance against the Patriots. So I'll take the Steelers and don't really have a strong feel toward the total.
Make it 2 on Pittsburgh. I'll take the -4. I think we could see a little bit of a shootout here, so I will take the over here as well. Feel better about the -4 on Pittsburgh, though, but don't hate the little parlay there of Pittsburgh and the over. Chop, 3-0 in Pittsburgh here?
Oh man, no, I can't go Pittsburgh, just because of this. I think it's it's a good spread. I like the over though quite a bit. I think Pittsburgh, like we've alluded to, should be able to score some points. And the only thing we need is to get Russell Wilson going. Like when Seattle's comfortable and they're just grinding, that's not good. But whenever Russell has to make plays, man, he's so good at it. So I think there's a lot of points here because we force Russell to make some plays.
I think Wilson could be loaned. People are so programmed now. Seattle's going to run the ball. If they get down, they're going to have to start throwing, and he can still put together some huge games. So very intriguing off the radar quarterback play in Russell Wilson. All right, next game we have Colts and Titans. The Colts, tough overtime loss to the Chargers here, Chop. Tennessee, maybe the shocker of the week, going into everyone's beloved Cleveland Browns and really putting them on them. And Delaney Walker summed it all up. If you didn't catch that, go check it out. But Tennessee coming home now, divisional game. How do you see this one playing out?
That was the shocker of the week. I mean, absolutely 100%. I agree that was the shocker of the week to watch Tennessee go on the road and demolish Cleveland. Didn't just beat them, they demolished them. So props to Tennessee. Now they're back home. Unfortunately, I'm not going to buy into their long-term success. I think they're a good team or a decent team, but they're not that good. On the flip side, Indianapolis, I think, is a really good team, and they would have been a Super Bowl contender with luck, and they're not quite there with Brissett, but they're still a playoff team, I think, because they're just built so well, and it starts with the offensive line. So I don't mind taking Marlon Mack. I don't mind taking T.Y. Hilton. Those are the two guys on that side that I want a piece of. And on the Tennessee side, I think they're going to have a much harder time finding running success with Derrick Henry this week. So, believe it or not, A.J. Brown, a rookie, stepped up and outperformed Corey Davis last week, really. So I think it's Corey Davis. If I'm taking somebody, it's Corey Davis this week. But really, Tennessee I just think they're kind of an ugly offense right here this week. So I don't have a lot of interest. I have more interest in those Indianapolis guys.
I'm having a hard time with anybody in this game. Tennessee can spread the ball around so much, kind of slow things down. Derrick Henry, last season against the Colts, 46 rushing yards, 93 rushing yards in that second game. That was in the midst of when he was on a tear. So they held him under 100 yards, and you got to think that's the focus here. The Colts, we know, outdoors, it's just not the same with a guy like T.Y. Hilton. So if anything, I'd be with you on Marlon Mack coming off a huge game, but Tennessee's run D, did their job against Nick Chubb. So really more of a hands-off game for me. Derek, what are your thoughts here? Any more interest than I have here in Colts and Titans?
Yeah, if I'm only building one lineup, I probably won't end up with anybody from this game. But if I'm building 4 or 5, I think there's some interesting options. We know the Titans want to run the ball. We know Derrick Henry certainly has upside. I mean, he's probably one of a handful of guys that could actually top 200 rushing yards in a single game. And he actually ran a route on 33% of Mariota's dropbacks, so that's at least interesting, helps his floor a little bit. Corey Davis, I'm kind of with Chop. I think he's the guy to target here. He was shadowed by Denzel Ward, one of the top corners last week, so I think he bounces back. He's a good price on DK. And then on the other side, the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. We saw Marlon Mack, 174 rushing yards on the road against the Chargers, pretty good defense there. So don't mind looking at him at 5,900. And then it looks like Funchess is going to miss some time with the broken collarbone. So the wide receiver 2 is going to be open, whether it's Paris Campbell, Deion Kane. I don't mind looking at them as, tournament flyers. We know T.Y. Hilton's the number 1 there, but you got to think the Titans are going to, put their attention on him, and this game is outdoors. So I think Campbell or Deion Kane could be sneaky.
All right, Derek, let's take a look at the spread here and the total on this game, if I could find it. There it is. Tennessee -3, the total at 44.
Oh, yeah, both of those feel pretty efficient for me. No strong lean either way.
All right, Chop, -3 for the Titans, or 44 juice on Tennessee and juice on the over as of now. What do you think?
I think we're on a free roll here with Indianapolis, just because the 3. I don't see how Tennessee can possibly. I mean, of course, I don't say anything can happen, but Tennessee's maximum here, I think, is a 3-point win. I don't think they dominate this game in more than 3-point fashion most of the time. So 3 points is their max. So I'll take Indianapolis because there's just so many more scenarios where I think they get in there and cover that spread.
And Tennessee may have, used a lot of energy for that win. They seem very energetic going into Cleveland and really crashing the parade there. And maybe that took everything out of them. I'm with you. I think the Colts could sneak in here. And I don't think anybody would be on the Colts side of things here with the way Tennessee looked in week 1. So I will take the +3 with the Colts as well. All right, last early game for us. We have Dallas and Washington. Dallas looked great in week 1. Washington put up quite a fight. That was the other surprise for me. Really punching Philadelphia in the mouth early on, Derek, and getting out to that early lead. Obviously, we know Philly came back, but was impressed there. I think the big news with Washington, no Darius Geis. So is it Peterson? I lean more to Chris Thompson here, if anything, for Washington. And then on the other side, I love Zeke this week. Zeke has played very well against this team. I think everybody's going to be excited about the passing game, but he was a lot more involved than I thought he was going to be. I think we get full-on Zeke Elliott here. Your thoughts, Cowboys and Redskins?
Yeah, I think the Cowboys roll in this one. I'll start with the Redskins. They had one of their best possible performances last week against the Eagles, still lost. I don't think Keenum's going to be the answer long-term. You mentioned Darius Geis is not going to play, so I don't think AP is going to get the job done here. He's really cheap, but I kind of lean with you, Chris Thompson. Assuming that the Cowboys are able to build a lead like I expect, I think Thompson's going to be the guy. Like that price point, like his PPR upside. Terry McLaurin played 93% of his stats, may have established himself as a number 1 wide receiver there in Washington, a game where they could be trailing. I think he's certainly interesting at 3,800. And then for the Cowboys, yeah, I kind of agree with you on Zeke. I think it's a good bounce back spot for him. Not only a bounce back, but a better spot for him to get going. Only played 54% of the snaps, but, he didn't play much in the fourth quarter. I think he actually sat out the entire quarter. And, it seems like teams are finally starting to figure out that the play action works. The new offensive coordinator there in Dallas had a play action for Dak on nearly 50% of his dropbacks, went for 405 and 4 touchdowns. So I think they'll be able to throw it, air it out if they want to. But I do think it's a good spot for Zeke. And Josh Norman, he's probably going to shadow Amari Cooper. So if you want to look to Michael Gallup once again, I think he's certainly interesting.
As Zeke 6 rushing touchdowns last 5 games against Washington. So clearly a matchup that he can thrive in. Chop, you're our resident Dallas expert. So is it a Zeke week? Do we go back to the passing game, which looked outstanding, or maybe it's both against Washington?
I think it's both. I think Elliott is a fine play. Coming off of a poor first week fantasy-wise, but that was kind of to be expected, I guess. But I think he finds the end zone. It's just at this price tag. Where's the big upside? Like guys like McCaffrey and Saquon, they have such big upside. I don't know if that upside's there this week because this Washington team really doesn't pose I don't think a huge like shootout type of game for Zeke. So I don't know if the upside is there. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll get him a touchdown, maybe 2. The guy I'm looking at in the lineup is Michael Gallup for a couple of reasons. Like Derek said, Amari should draw the tougher coverage. And Amari hasn't really dealt with tough coverage all that great in his career. So I'm going to take Gallup. Everybody's going to load the line looking at Zeke and then trying to shut down Amari. I think Gallup is going to get loose just like Deshaun Jackson did last week. So I'm going Gallup here for the big play. And on the flip side, I have no interest in any of these Washington guys. I mean, you can play the rookie, Scary Terry, again. I just don't think he's going to duplicate that stuff again. Listen, we may look back here a few weeks from now and look at Philadelphia and go, damn, that's such a bad secondary. And that's why Washington got loose in week 1, not because Washington's so great, but because Philly's so bad in the secondary. So I don't think Terry and Keenum are going to connect quite the same way. I'm going to pass on Washington, but my number 1 guy here would be Gallup. He's had that rapport with Prescott all offseason, man, and I think it's real.
Yeah, he looked great. They've been talking about him all training camp long. $5,600, a very fair price here. So I like that call a lot. So thoughts on the spread here, Chop? -4.5 for the Cowboys. Total sitting at 46.
Ooh. Road dogs I can't do too many road dogs over a field goal. So I'm going to stick to the under because I think I'm pushing my luck if I try to take a road favorite. I don't want to push my luck on a road favorite again over a field goal. So I'm going to take the under. I just think Washington's going to have a hard time scoring, I think, and Dallas can then just grind it out in the second half and we can go low scoring here.
Derek, Cowboys -4.5, total sitting at 46. Any strong leans there?
probably the donkey side, but give me the Cowboys -4.5.
There you go. I'm with you on Dallas. I think they win this game. Washington, spirited effort there, but I think Dallas head and shoulders above the Redskins here, so I'll take the Cowboys. All right, let's move on to the afternoon games. Just 3 games for us in the afternoon this week, so a smaller slate. If you're playing those games, obviously we know they're included in the main slate. We have Kansas City traveling to Oakland. Kansas City went down to Jacksonville, got things done. Oakland spirited win at home there in week 1. Did you guys hear the chants there in Oakland? Did you watch? Did you stay up and watch any of that game?
I heard about it. I did not watch it, but
the old FUAB chant was loud and proud there in Oakland.
Good for them, man. Good for them.
Oh, I loved it. Like they should be pissed. Their team leaves. This guy comes in, he leaves. So we'll see if they can do it again here at home. Chop, can they possibly get the job done against Kansas City? Now we know Tyreek Hill going to be out. So my big question with Kansas City, I have 2 questions. Mahomes banged up, no Tyreek Hill. Is there any value here in the DeMarcus Robinsons of the world, some of the cheaper guys? I know everybody's going to want to go back to Sammy Watkins, but is it Hardman? Is it Robinson? Any of those guys worth a play this week? And then the running back situation. You know, we saw Damian Williams kind of have the bigger split there, but McCoy was involved. He's the cheaper of the 2. What are we doing with them? And then Oakland looked good. You know, it's Tyrell Williams. It was Darren Waller. Josh Jacobs looked good. Who are you playing from the Raiders side of things?
Oh, yeah, they were the Raiders were very surprising on Monday night. I give them a lot of credit. I didn't think the offense was going to be very good. And Denver, I thought, was going to be a decent defense, and they just looked overmatched. So I think we can go back to Josh Jacobs because he's a workhorse, and that's what we care about in fantasy is the volume, not necessarily the matchup or the player himself. The guy was a workhorse. So we go back to Josh Jacobs. Go to Darren Waller because he looked good, and the price tag is still super good on him. And we're facing the Chiefs here, and you know the Chiefs are going to make you score points. So I'm definitely on board with those guys. I was shocked, color me shocked, that Tyrell Williams got that loose against what I thought was a good Denver secondary. So if he can do that against Denver, he can certainly do it against Kansas City. I think those 3 guys are all in play again. And the price tags certainly don't look like they've adjusted very much on them. In fact, I would imagine they did these salaries before that Monday night game was over with, and they just kind of threw the same stuff on there because those are some cheap salaries. But I think they can get it done. The surprise to me, not even a surprise, I thought the Raiders could have a pretty decent defense, and they did look good. But now we got a different beast here, Kansas City. But the Kansas City, like you said, no Tyreek. You're going in to play Oakland on that terrible, terrible field where it's just nasty and ugly. So maybe it slows them down a little bit, but I think you definitely chalk up Kelsey as the number 1 tight end this week. I think you can play some Damian Williams. I think the guy I'm most interested in the receiving core is Mecole Hardman. I heard some good things about him. DeMarcus Robinson should be the incumbent, but he's never really gotten a chance. Even when we think he should get a chance, and he never really got the chance. So I think they're higher on Hardman. So I'm thinking Hardman is the guy here for me. And, I like this game in general. I think there's some points here. And the spread, it looks like it. 52 is a pretty big total. So I think we're going to see some points here. And I like all kinds of aspects of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I love spending up on Kelsey. There's a lot of cheap tight ends, and that's generally the way I want to go. But when you want to be different, Kelsey's been very good against this Oakland team over the past few seasons. So, Derek, lots in this game. A lot of value on the Raiders. Their potential value here on the Chiefs. Kelsey, Mahomes, the Chiefs running back situation. Thoughts on this game? I think it's an important one for this slate.
Yeah, I'm not alone in this, but I absolutely love this game. Chop hit the nail on the head. Salaries were released before Monday night's game, so the Raiders are not priced appropriately. Jacobs looked better than I thought he would. 24 touches, got all the goal line work, caught a long pass as well. He's only 4,700 on DraftKings. Derek Carr's only 5,100. He looked pretty good. Tyrell Williams, you mentioned the tough matchup against Chris Harrison at Denver secondary. He looked good. Darren Waller played 100% of the team's snaps, caught 7 of his 8 targets. And like a couple of these other tight ends that we've talked about, 22 snaps in the slot or lined up out wide. So love the spot for the Raiders. And then obviously the Chiefs, they have an elite offense that's already concentrated to begin with. And then you take out Tyreek Hill. They're playing the Raiders on a short rest, the Raiders that is. And I just love the spot for the Chiefs. I'll be playing a lot of Mahomes. You mentioned Travis Kelce as a top play at tight end. I agree with you. completely. Mahomes missed Kelsey on that wide open touchdown and then apologized for it later. I think that he rights the ship with Kelsey this week, and he gets in the end zone a couple times. You can play Sammy Watkins. He looked really good. He's fast. He's explosive. And then you obviously mix in the cheap guys with Hardman, Robinson, Thomas. So, yeah, I won't be touching the running backs for Kansas City, but pretty much love everyone else in this game. And one of the sneaky things that you can do, in something like the Millionaire Maker is play both of the tight ends from this game because nobody's going to use, a tight end in the flex.
There you go. All right, we got another big road favorite here, Kansas City -7.5. Big total, 52. Any leans there, Derek, on either of those?
Give me the over. Don't have a strong feel on the 8.5.
Chop, -7.5 here for the Chiefs, 52-point total.
Yeah, I don't have a lean either way. The 7 is big for being on the road, and so I can't go that route. And the 52 is a high number, so I can't go that route either. I feel pretty comfortable that spread's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. Now that those really stand out, I could see the Raiders keeping things close, so that's tempting. I could also see the Chiefs going in and blowing their doors off. So probably a pass for me there as well. All right, next game we have Chicago and Denver. Two teams coming off of losses. Chicago at home to Green Bay. Denver, obviously, as we know, took that loss in Oakland on Monday night. So I think the big story here is the coach, obviously very familiar, Vic Fangio, with the Chicago offense, with Mitch Trubisky. And there's a lot of numbers that support Denver early in the season at home. So I'm more on the Denver side of things here. Derek, what are your thoughts, Bears and Broncos?
Yeah, I saw that stat as well. Broncos 22-1 at home in the first 2 games of the season since the year 2000. So, yeah, it's obviously a different coach and different offense, but definitely something to look at. And if anybody knows how to beat this Bears defense, it's Vic Fangio. But at the same time, I don't really want to play anyone from Denver. I was very impressed with Cortland Sutton on Monday night, but he's going to be facing a much tougher secondary. Still going to have to, split targets with Sanders and Hamilton. This backfield is going to be 50-50 pretty much. Devontae Booker wasn't really involved at all, so it's going to be Lindsey and Freeman, but don't really want to play him in this matchup. And for the Bears, Tramon Williams pretty much summed it up perfectly. He said all they had to do was make Mitchell Trubisky play quarterback, and they'd have a chance to win. He looked really ugly in that game. The running back snaps, Montgomery just didn't play as much as we thought he would. Mike Davis, outsnapped him. And then Tariq Cohen saw a bunch of snaps in the slot. I think he's interesting. If Anthony Miller is going to be limited again, I think Cohen could get, quite a bit of a run, in the slot. But for the most part, I don't really love anyone here. Robinson's probably going to draw Chris Harris. And even though Tyrell Williams had a big game against him last week, it's still a tough matchup. So overall, just an ugly game.
Yeah, agreed. If anything, give me the Denver defense. I think that could be a play. We both brought up Fangio, very familiar with Trubisky. He's going to know how to frustrate him and work around this offense. So I like that, and I like Denver with the points at home. We'll get to that in a minute. But Chop, an ugly game here, just a 40.5-point total. Are you finding any plays here, Bears and Broncos?
Well, this is one where we can make the podcast fly a little bit faster because I'm not even gonna try to recommend a guy in this game. I have no interest. This is a one. Well, I'll probably X this one out of my player pool altogether. Yeah, I mean, you can't possibly. I mean, gosh, you'd have to be crazy. Well, I mean, you'd have to be really out there to want to roster a Denver player after what we saw on Monday night against the Chicago. They may or may not be the best defense in the NFL. If they're not, then they're top 5 for sure. How can you roster a Denver player against that? And then on the flip side, Denver being back at home is only going to strengthen their defense. Chicago looked bad on offense. They're not that good. Trubisky is the captain here, and the captain, he sucks, man. This captain is bad. Like, he's not good. League is starting to catch on to Trubisky quite a bit here. So I have no interest in this game at all.
All right, what about spread? I'm taking Denver at home. They're catching 2.5 points. We got another road favorite here. Total sitting at 40.5.
Denver being at home with that spread is very tempting. I think I'm just going to go ahead and roll with my instinct though and go with the under, man. I know it sucks, man. 40, but you got to do it.
This could be a 9-6, a lot of field goal games here. So I don't hate that play.
That is man's best friend when you're taking the under is when they bring out those field goal units.
Oh, yeah, nothing better than seeing them kickers on those unders. Derek, any thoughts? Bears minus 2.5, 40.5 for a total.
Yeah, give me Broncos in the under.
All right, last game for us. We go from a dud to maybe the game of the week. Highest total here on the main slate. We have an NFC Championship rematch. It is not in New Orleans. I think that would have been interesting, but we are out in L.A. Saints and Rams. Rams minus 2.5-point favorites. Like I said, 53 is the total here. So, Derek, a bonanza here. A lot of choices, a lot of stats, a lot of numbers. All these guys did what we thought they would do. Todd Gurley, I guess, is the biggest question mark. And Malcolm Brown. We have a $7,000 running back. We have a $4,100 running back. Break that tie there. What receivers do you want from the Rams? And then the Saints. Is it just simply as Kamara and Thomas move on?
Yeah, I think for the Saints, it is really that simple. You could play Breeze, but at the same time, he's going to throw the ball to Kamara and he's going to throw the ball to Michael Thomas. Kamara had the best elusiveness rating of any running back in the NFL in week 1. He saw 74% of the snaps, which was a lot higher than we've seen from him in the past. And we know Michael Thomas is going to be heavily involved. So those would be the two I would look to there. You could always play Cook in tournaments because he's going to have those, 4 or 5 big games a year and then pretty much be quiet the rest of the year. So I like those guys. And then for the Rams, Jared Goff has really struggled. Struggled toward the end of last season, looked pretty mediocre against Carolina, but he just has so many weapons that it's hard not to like him. 5,900 at home against the Saints. Just gave up a big game to Deshaun Watson. So I have some interest there. Don't really know who to pair him up with is the problem. Woods, Cooks, and Kupp all played over 90% of the snaps. They're all going to be, heavily involved. It's just going to be a week-to-week thing, and trying to predict which one is going to go off is going to be tough. But you got to think their top corner is going to be on Brandon Cooks or Robert Woods on the outside. So maybe Cooper Kupp's the guy to play here. Gurley, 70% of the snaps, which was a little bit higher than I was expecting. They said they were going to give him most of the snaps, and they kind of did. He was the guy out there in the fourth quarter, and he had the second best elusiveness rating of any running back in week 1. Still don't think I want to go there, but I do prefer him over Malcolm Brown, especially with this game featuring a close spread.
All right, Chop, finish us off here, Saints and Rams.
I mean, lots of good stuff, but I think we need to pour one out for Mr. Gurley. We rode that train for as long as we could, but I think that train is pulling into the station on its last ride, man. That's what happens when you get an NFL running back, man. One injury can cripple your career. I think that's where we're at with him. He's got a little arthritis in his knee, and I don't think he's going to be the same. So I think he'll have some 2-touchdown weeks in his future, but I don't think we can roster him faithfully anymore like we used to. But you're right, this game in general is going to be a total bonanza. My number one player for the Rams, Cooper Kupp. I'll go Cooper Kupp, follow him up with maybe Brandon Cooks and then Robert Woods. A lot of interest in that passing game, but Cooper Kupp number 1. And on the flip side, Kamara is going to get off in this game. He just didn't quite find the end zone on Monday night, but man, he looked good, looked solid. So I think Kamara finds the end zone here, maybe multiple times. The good thing about the Saints, we don't have to go too far. They're a 2-man show, Kamara and Thomas. Those are the skill players you can take. Maybe we throw in Jared Cook to get his first touchdown with the Saints, but these guys are all in play, but those are my favorites.
Yeah, Kamara might be my favorite play of the week. I mean, just look at what McCaffrey did to this team last week. We know his involvement is maybe not as involved as McCaffrey, but the upside through the roof here, only 8,200 on DraftKings, to me, should be a 9K player. Wide receivers for the Rams, I prefer Cooks. You get, the deep ball was beating them. The Texans beat them quite a few times over the top. You get the revenge narrative. Plus, he was the guy that disappointed out of the Rams receivers in week 1. So don't mind any of them. That's what you're going to face every single week. Is it Kupps? Is it Woods? Is it Cooks? Kupp, that is. It could be any of the 3, but I prefer Cooks this week. But Kamara in a smash spot against the Rams. All right, that'll wrap us up for week 2, boys. Good stuff. Any final thoughts here? Derek, we'll go to you, and then we'll come back to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Derek, what do you got?
All I'm going to say is save some of your roster spots for the afternoon games, the Saints-Rams and the Chiefs-Raiders. I mean, I think you could just stack those 2 games and be pretty well off. You could put yourself in, position to win some tournaments with those guys. So that's going to be my advice of the week.
Yeah, man, that's going to be a nice little 3-game slate there, too. Or actually, 2-gamer. I don't see anybody playing anybody from the Bears, Broncos, but should be a fun afternoon slate with only 3 games. Chop, the $1 million man, any final thoughts here for week 2?
No, just going through these games. I think they look solid. I think it's going to be a fun week, and I actually think you just hit on a really nice strategy point for that 3-game afternoon is play it, fade that one game, Chicago, Denver, let other people kill 10, 15, 20% of rosters out there by playing those scrubs, and then load up on the other 2 games. I think it's a good way to go. And by the way, I'll also say, how in the hell is the NFL this ignorant not to give us a better afternoon slate, man? We're only 2 weeks into the season now. We only get 3 games in the afternoon. Come on, guys.
They did a better job last year balancing things. It seemed like we avoided these 3-game afternoon slates. So hopefully this is just a bump in the road. But my biggest point, and I brought it up earlier, don't be afraid to go back to players or teams that were a dud in week 1. Don't overreact to week 1. You certainly want to react to it. But don't overreact, freak out. Pittsburgh probably being my biggest favorite team, players to go back to at home against Seattle, a team I'll be heavy on here in week 2. All right, we are out of here for week 2 for Notorious, for headChopper. I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck in your contest this week, guys. Thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate the support. Don't be afraid. Tell your friends about the OGs. Spread the word about the pod. We love doing it. Hopefully you guys love listening to it. Thank you. We're out of here. We'll see you next week.